The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and lemon polish. I sat across from Mr. Peterson, my brother Daniel beside me, both of us still wearing black from our father's funeral that morning. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, as if the sky itself was mourning. "I'm very sorry for your loss," Mr. Peterson said, adjusting his reading glasses. "Your father was a good man. This won't take long." He opened a manila folder, such a plain thing to hold the final words of someone you loved. I reached for Daniel's hand without thinking, the way I always had during difficult moments. We'd buried our mother 5 years ago. Now Dad was gone too. We were orphans at 38 and 41, which seemed ridiculous, but that's what we were. All we had left was each other. Or so I thought. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat and began to read. The legal language washed over me at first, whereas and heretofore, and other words that seemed designed to distance you from grief. Then I started hearing the actual contents. The house, Daniel. The business, Daniel. The savings account, Daniel. Dad's coin collection he'd spent 40 years building, Daniel. The car, the tools, the small investment portfolio, Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. And for me, his daughter Caroline, who'd moved back home to take care of him for the last 2 years of his life, who'd quit my job and put my life on hold, who'd bathed him and fed him and held his hand through the worst of the cancer. For me, there was a letter. Just a letter. I felt Daniel stiffen beside me, heard him say, "Wait, that can't be right," but his voice sounded far away, like I was underwater. Mr. Peterson handed me an envelope, my name in Dad's shaky handwriting, those last months when even holding a pen was difficult. Inside, I already knew would be an explanation, maybe an apology, some reason why the daughter who'd sacrificed everything was worth less than a piece of paper, while the son who visited twice in 2 years got everything else. "There must be a mistake," Daniel said, his voice stronger now. "Dad wouldn't. Caroline practically lived there. She took care of everything." "I'm afraid there's no mistake," Mr. Peterson said gently. "Your father was very clear. He updated this will 6 months ago, fully competent, witnessed properly. It's ironclad. 6 months ago, when Dad could still speak clearly, still make his wishes known. This wasn't confusion or medication or last-minute changes. This was intentional." I stood up, the envelope burning in my hand. "I need some air." "Caroline, wait." Daniel reached for me, but I was already moving toward the door. I didn't open the letter that day, or the next, or the week after that. It sat on my kitchen counter like something toxic, something that might poison me if I touched it. Because once I read it, I would know why my father had chosen to hurt me this way, and part of me wasn't ready for that truth. Daniel and I grew up in a brick house on Riverside Drive, the kind with a wide front porch and a backyard big enough for a swing set and Dad's vegetable garden. Our father, Richard Brennan, worked as a high school history teacher for 35 years. Our mother, Helen, was a nurse at the county hospital. They were simple people with simple dreams. Raise good kids, save for retirement, maybe take a trip to Ireland someday to see where Dad's grandparents came from. We were a close family, or at least I always thought we were. Sunday dinners around the table, mandatory even when Daniel and I were teenagers and would rather be anywhere else. Family movie nights with popcorn and Mom's commentary on every plot point. Summer vacations to the same cabin by the lake, year after year, because Dad said why mess with perfection. Daniel was the firstborn, and he carried that weight the way firstborns do. Serious, responsible, always trying to make Mom and Dad proud. He got good grades without trying too hard, played varsity baseball, dated the right kind of girls. After college, he moved 3 hours north to take a job at a tech company, married his college girlfriend Melissa, bought a house in the suburbs. I was the creative one, the dreamer. I studied graphic design, moved to the city, worked freelance, dated artists and musicians who never quite worked out. Mom used to joke that I kept them young with worry, but she said it with love, always with love. Dad would just shake his head and say, "As long as you're happy, Caro, that's all that matters." I believed him. I believed that's all that mattered to him. When Mom got sick, a stroke, sudden and devastating, we both came home. Daniel took a week off work, then 2, then went back because Melissa was pregnant with their first child and he couldn't afford to lose his job. I stayed. I worked remotely when I could, took on fewer clients, spent my days at the hospital with Mom and Dad. She died 3 weeks after the stroke, never regaining consciousness. At her funeral, Dad held my hand so tight I thought my bones might break. Daniel gave the eulogy, his voice steady and strong, saying all the right things. Afterward, people told him how brave he was, how well he was holding up. Nobody mentioned that I'd been the one washing Mom's face with a cool cloth every day, reading to her even though she couldn't hear, telling her it was okay to let go when the doctor said there was no hope. After Mom died, Dad seemed to shrink. He'd always been a big presence, not physically large, but filling a room with his voice, his laugh, his endless stories about historical figures like they were old friends. But grief diminished him. He rattled around that house like a ghost haunting his own life. I visited every weekend, made sure he was eating, doing his laundry, taking his heart medication. Daniel called every Sunday evening, talked for exactly 15 minutes, asked the same questions. "How are you feeling, Dad? Everything okay?" "Good, good." Dad would tell him everything was fine. Then I'd get a call on Monday. "Caro, can you pick up my prescriptions? I forgot again." Or, "Caro, the washing machine is making that noise. Can you take a look?" Or just, "Caro, can you come over? The house is too quiet." So I came, every time. I started keeping a toothbrush there, then a change of clothes, then half my things. My apartment in the city sat empty more nights than not. 2.5 years after Mom died, Dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The kind where the oncologist gives you statistics that sound like a death sentence because they are. 6 months to a year, the doctor said. With treatment, maybe 18 months. We can try chemotherapy, but at your age, Richard, and with your heart condition, the quality of life might not be worth it. Dad decided against aggressive treatment. "I've lived a good life," he told me in the parking lot after that appointment, his voice calm. "I taught hundreds of kids, married the love of my life, raised 2 beautiful children. I'm not going to spend my last months being poisoned in the hope of a few extra weeks." I understood. I also fell apart. Daniel flew in for the weekend, sat down with Dad and me at the kitchen table. "We need to talk about care," he said, already pulling out his phone to take notes. "Home health aides, hospice eventually. Caroline, you can't do this alone." "I'm not alone," I said. "I have you." He looked uncomfortable. "Melissa's pregnant again. We've got Emma in preschool, and with my position at the company, I can't just leave for months, Carol. I wish I could, but I can't." "I'm not asking you to leave. Just visit more, help more." "I will," he promised. "I'll come down at least once a month, more toward the end, and I'll help financially, whatever you need." But I didn't need money. I needed someone to share the weight of watching our father die. In the end, I moved home completely, gave up my apartment, put my furniture in storage, told my clients I was taking an indefinite leave. Dad protested at first, said I was too young to put my life on hold for him, that I could see the relief in his eyes, the fear of dying alone fading. Those 2 years were the hardest of my life, and the most precious. I learned to give injections, manage pain medication, read the subtle signs of distress. I cooked his favorite meals, even when he could only eat a few bites. We watched every historical documentary ever made. He told me stories about his childhood, about meeting Mom, about the day I was born. "You came out screaming bloody murder, and you've been making your presence known ever since." Daniel visited 6 times in 2 years. Christmas, Thanksgiving, and 4 weekends when I called and said, "You need to come now.
He's asking for you." Each time, Daniel would sit by Dad's bed, hold his hand, tell him about Emma and the new baby Thomas, tell him about work promotions and the new house they'd bought. Dad would light up, so proud of his son, the successful businessman with the perfect family. Then Daniel would leave, and Dad would turn to me. "He's doing so well for himself." "Yes, I'd agree." "I worry about you, Carol. You've given up so much." "I'm exactly where I want to be." I'd tell him, and it was true. The last month was the worst. Dad in a hospital bed we'd set up in the living room, hospice nurses coming 3 times a day. He slept most of the time, the morphine taking him somewhere beyond pain. But sometimes he'd wake up confused, not knowing where he was or what year it was. "Helen," he called out, looking for Mom. "Helen, where are you?" "It's Caroline, Dad. I'm here." He'd focus on me, recognition slowly returning. "Oh, Carol, I thought I heard your mother." "Maybe you did. Because who knows what the dying can perceive." Daniel came for the last week. Melissa stayed home with the kids, but Daniel took time off work, slept on the couch, helped with the caregiving. We moved around each other carefully, quietly, 2 people united in grief, but separated by the different ways we'd shown our love. Dad died on a Tuesday morning in March. I was holding one hand, Daniel the other. His last words were so quiet I almost missed them. "I'm sorry." "For what, Dad?" I whispered, but he was already gone. At the funeral, person after person told me how lucky Dad was to have me, how devoted I had been, what a good daughter I was. Daniel stood beside me, accepting condolences, his arm around my shoulders. "We got each other through this," he told people. "Caroline and I, we're all the family we have left now. We'll take care of each other." I believed him. Standing there in the rain, watching them lower our father into the ground beside our mother, I believed that Daniel and I would face whatever came next together. 3 days later, sitting in that lawyer's office, I learned how wrong I was. The house, the business Dad had built selling antique furniture on the side, the savings account, the coin collection we'd added to together every birthday, all of it went to Daniel. The son who called once a week and visited 6 times in 2 years. The son who had his own house, his own money, his own perfect life 3 hours away. And me? I got a letter I was too afraid to open. I stayed at a friend's apartment that first week, unable to go back to Dad's house. It wasn't even my house to go back to now. It was Daniel's. He called every day, left voicemails. "Caroline, please, we need to talk about this. There has to be an explanation. Let me help you figure this out." But I couldn't talk to him. Couldn't face him because part of me, a part I didn't want to acknowledge, wondered if Daniel had known. If he'd influenced Dad somehow. If all those Sunday phone calls had been working on Dad's mind, planting seeds? No, Daniel wouldn't do that. Would he?
I finally went back to the house 2 weeks after the reading of the will. Daniel had been calling every day, and I'd been ignoring him, but I needed my things. More than that, I needed to feel close to Dad again, to walk through those rooms and remember him before cancer, before grief, before whatever had made him decide I wasn't worth leaving anything to. I used my key, wondered briefly if I'd need to give it back now, and stepped into the quiet. The house smelled stale, like grief and closed windows. Dad's hospital bed was still in the living room. The hospice company was supposed to pick it up, but nobody had called them. That would have been my job, I realized, but it wasn't my house anymore. I stood there looking at that empty bed, at the indentation in the pillow where his head had rested, and something broke open inside me. I sank to the floor and cried like I hadn't let myself cry at the funeral. Great, ugly sobs that echoed through the empty house. That's how Daniel found me. He'd been checking the house every day, he told me later, hoping I'd come back. "Caro," he said softly, and then he was sitting beside me on the floor, pulling me into his arms. I let him hold me because he was my brother and he was all I had left, even if I didn't understand him anymore. I don't know why he did this, Daniel said into my hair. I swear to God, Carolyn, I don't know. I never asked him for anything. I never even knew he was updating his will. Then why? I pulled back to look at him. Why would he give you everything and leave me nothing? I was here, Daniel, every single day. I gave up my entire life. I know you did. He looked wrecked, dark circles under his eyes. His tie loosened like he'd been pulling at it. Have you read the letter? No. Maybe you should. Maybe it explains. I'm afraid, I admitted. What if it's worse? What if he says something that makes it hurt more? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Or what if it makes it make sense? Would that be better or worse? He didn't have an answer for that. We spent the afternoon going through my things, clothes, books, the art supplies I'd kept in the spare bedroom. Daniel helped me pack, his movements careful, like I was something fragile that might shatter. What are you going to do with the house? I asked, folding one of my sweaters. I don't know. Sell it probably. Melissa and I don't need it, and I can't imagine anyone else living here. He paused. The money from the sale, we'll split it, 50-50. That's not what the will says. I don't care what the will says. You deserve half of everything, Carolyn, more than half. I don't want your charity, I said, sharper than I intended. It's not charity, it's what's right. If Dad wanted it to be right, he would have written it that way. Daniel flinched. You think I wanted this? You think I'm happy he cut you out? I don't know what to think anymore. The truth is, I was angry. Angry at Dad for doing this. Angry at Daniel for being the favorite, even if it wasn't his fault. Angry at myself for all the years I'd spent trying to be the good daughter, thinking it mattered, thinking love was enough. That evening, I found Daniel in Dad's study, going through the desk drawers. He looked up when I came in, guilt flashing across his face. I'm not stealing anything, he said quickly, just looking for, I don't know, something that explains this. Find anything? Bank statements, bills, nothing unusual. He held up a small notebook, his daily planner. He tracked everything, doctor's appointments, hospice visits, when you picked up his medications. Can I see? He handed it over. I flipped through pages of Dad's familiar handwriting, notes about his pain levels, what he'd eaten, questions to ask the doctor. And there, on almost every page, Caroline came by, made dinner. Caroline helped with shower. Caroline read to me. My throat tightened. He documented everything I'd done, seen it, acknowledged it. So why? There's something else, Daniel said quietly. He pulled out a file folder from the bottom drawer. Financial records, going back years. I took the folder, opened it. Bank statements, investment records, the deed to the house. Everything organized with Dad's typical precision. But there were also canceled checks, copies of them, going back almost 20 years. Look at the amounts, Daniel said. I did. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there, then larger, 5,000, 10,000, always made out to the same person, Daniel Brennan. He was giving you money, I said slowly, all these years. Daniel nodded, his face pale. I didn't know he'd kept records, but yeah. When Melissa and I bought our first house, he helped with the down payment. When Emma was born and we had medical bills, he helped with that. When I took the new position and we needed a bigger house, he helped with that too. How much? Over the years, maybe 200,000? The number hit me like a physical blow. $200,000.
He wanted to help. He said he had the money from Mom's life insurance, from his retirement fund. He said he was proud of me, of the family I had built, and he wanted to contribute. Did you ever say no? Daniel looked at me, and I saw the answer in his eyes before he spoke. No. I should have, maybe, but I didn't. He seemed happy to do it, Caro. Proud, like it gave him purpose, helping us out. What about me? My voice was barely a whisper. Did he ever offer to help me? Did you ever ask? I shouldn't have to ask. I'm his daughter, too. But you were different, Daniel said, and there was something gentle in his voice, something pitying that made me want to scream. You were always independent, living in the city, doing your art, not wanting anything from anyone. I think he thought you didn't need him the way I did. So he punished me for not needing his money? Or maybe he's trying to balance things out now. He gave me so much while he was alive. Maybe he thought the inheritance should go to me because what? I already got my share by being here? By taking care of him? No, God, no. I don't know, Caroline. I'm just trying to understand this. I set the folder down before I threw it. I need some air. Outside, the garden Dad had loved was overgrown, the early spring weeds already taking over. I walked to the back where his vegetable plot used to be, now just tangled grass and dead leaves. Mom used to help him plant every April. Tomatoes, cucumbers, those bell peppers he could never quite get right. I heard the door open behind me. Daniel's footsteps on the porch. I called Mr. Peterson, asked if there was any way to contest the will, to split things more fairly. And? He said the will is solid, but he also said Dad had been very clear about his wishes, said Dad had sat in his office for 3 hours, going through every detail, making sure everything was exactly the way he wanted it.
3 hours to cut his daughter out of his life. There's more. Daniel came to stand beside me. Mr. Peterson said Dad had brought something with him that day. A letter. Not the one he left for you, another one. He had Mr. Peterson read it, witness it, and seal it in an envelope. Then he gave instructions. What kind of instructions? The letter is to be opened only if you agree to it, and only in the presence of both of us and Mr. Peterson. Dad made it very clear you have a choice. You can read your letter and never know what's in the second one, or you can agree to hear the second letter, and then you'll understand everything. I turned to look at him. That doesn't make any sense. I know, but that's what Dad wanted. A choice. Why? I don't know, but Caro, maybe we should do it. Maybe we should read both letters and finally understand what he was thinking. I thought about it, standing there in Dad's ruined garden. Part of me wanted to walk away from all of it. The house, the money, the mystery. Just leave and never look back. Build a new life somewhere far from all this hurt. But another part of me, the part that had loved Dad despite everything, needed to know. Needed to understand why the man who'd held my hand through Mom's funeral had decided I wasn't worth leaving anything to. Okay, I said finally. Set it up. We met in Mr. Peterson's office 3 days later. The same room, the same leather chairs, but this time I was prepared for pain. Or I thought I was. Mr. Peterson pulled out 2 envelopes. One was the letter Dad had left for me. I'd brought it with me, still unopened. The other was crisp and white, sealed with red wax like something from another century. Your father was very specific about the order, Mr. Peterson said. Caroline, you read your letter first, aloud if you're comfortable. Then, if you both agree, I'll read the second letter. My hand shook as I opened the envelope I'd been carrying for weeks. Inside was a single page, Dad's handwriting shakier than I remembered, but still legible. My dearest Caro. By now you know what I've done, and you're hurt, angry, and confused. You have every right to be. But before you hate me, before you decide your old man lost his mind at the end, I need you to read what I've left with Mr. Peterson. I need you to understand why. You spent 2 years taking care of me, putting your life on hold, giving me everything. You think I didn't notice? You think I didn't see the sacrifice? I saw it all, sweetheart, every moment, and it broke my heart because I knew what it was costing you. There are things I need to tell you, things I should have told you years ago. But I was a coward, and by the time I found the courage, I was dying, and some conversations are too important to have from a deathbed. The second letter will hurt. I'm sorry for that. But you deserve the truth, and Daniel deserves to finally know it too. I love you more than you'll ever understand. Everything I've done out of love. Dad. I set the letter down, my vision blurring with tears. I don't understand. The second letter, Daniel said. We need to read it. Mr. Peterson broke the wax seal and unfolded the pages. There were 3 of them, covered in Dad's writing. Are you both ready? He asked. We nodded, and he began to read. Mr. Peterson's voice was steady and professional as he read, but I could see his discomfort in the way he gripped the pages. To my children, if you're hearing this, Caroline has chosen to know the truth. I'm grateful for that, even though I know what I'm about to tell you will change everything between you. Maybe it will destroy what's left of our family. But secrets have eaten away at me for 40 years, and I can't take them to my grave. Caroline, you are not my biological daughter. Your mother and I went through a terrible patch in our marriage when Daniel was 2 years old. I was working too much, she was exhausted with a toddler, and we'd stopped seeing each other as partners. We became roommates who happened to share a child. Helen had a colleague at the hospital, another nurse, Michael Reeves. He was kind, attentive, everything I wasn't being at the time. It lasted 3 months. She ended it, came to me in tears, confessed everything. I was devastated. I moved out for a while, stayed with my brother, seriously considered divorce. But I loved her. God help me, I loved her too much to let her go. We went to counseling, worked on our marriage, slowly found our way back to each other. 6 months after I moved back home, Helen discovered she was pregnant with you. We did the math. We knew. There was a chance you were mine, but the timing made it more likely you were his. Helen wanted to find out for certain. I refused. I told her it didn't matter, that I would love this baby regardless, that we would move forward as a family and never speak of it again. And we didn't. For 38 years, we kept this secret. But Caroline, I need you to understand, I did love you. From the moment you were born, you were mine, my daughter. I changed your diapers, walked you to school, taught you to ride a bike, scared away unsuitable boyfriends. You were mine in every way that mattered. Except I couldn't forget. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget that you might not be mine by blood. And it created a distance between us I could never quite bridge. A reserve I couldn't overcome. I tried, sweetheart. God knows I tried.
When your mother had her stroke, one of the last coherent things she said to me was, "Take care of Caroline. She's yours, Richard. I had the test done years ago. She's yours. I never told you this,
I should have. But by then, you and I had established our pattern. Me holding back, you trying harder. How could I suddenly change and not have you ask why? The money I gave Daniel over the years, that was guilt too. Guilt that I loved him more easily, that I gave him the full measure of my heart while I gave you the leftovers. I thought providing for his family, helping him build his life, was just what fathers did. But the truth is, I never offered to help you the same way because you reminded me too much of that painful time. And then you came back when I got sick. You gave up everything to take care of me. You showed me more love in 2 years than I'd shown you in a lifetime. And it broke me open. I finally understood what your mother had been trying to tell me, that you were mine, that you'd always been mine, that biology didn't matter half as much as showing up, as choosing to love, as sacrifice. I wanted to change the will. I wanted to leave you everything, to somehow make up for 40 years of holding back. But that's when Daniel, Mr. Peterson paused, looking at Daniel. Mr. Brennan, perhaps you should keep reading, Daniel said, his voice hollow. His face had gone completely white. Mr. Peterson continued. But that's when Daniel came to visit me, 6 months before I died. You remember, Caroline, you'd gone out to get groceries. Daniel and I were alone for the first time in months. He asked if we could talk privately, said he had something important to discuss. And then he told me he'd found something while helping you organize my files. An old letter from Helen to Michael Reeves, dated 39 years ago. A letter sheet apparently written but never sent, telling Michael she was pregnant and didn't know who the father was. He'd found it in a box of your mother's things from the hospital. He'd kept it for weeks, he said, trying to decide what to do. Finally, he decided I had a right to know it existed. I told him I already knew, told him the whole story. And then he said something that changed everything. He said, "Dad, I love Caroline. She's my sister, but I have to think about my own children now, about Emma and Thomas. If there's any doubt about Caroline's parentage, any chance that a DNA test could prove she's not really a Brennan, the will could be contested. The estate could be tied up in court for years. My kids' inheritance could be at risk." I tried to tell him it didn't matter, that Helen had confirmed you were mine. But Daniel said without proof, without a DNA test, there would always be doubt. And doubt could mean legal challenges, family fighting over money, everything I'd built being torn apart. He suggested a solution. Leave the estate to him, the unquestioned biological son. No one could challenge that. It would be clean, clear, no possibility of legal problems. And then he promised me he would take care of you. He would make sure you got your fair share, that you were provided for. "I'll split everything with her, Dad," he said, 50-50, just like it should be. But this way, it's my choice, not a legal obligation that someone could question. This way, we protect the family. He made it sound so reasonable, so protective. He sat there holding my hand, talking about family unity, about protecting you from the pain of a legal challenge, about making sure Mom's secret stayed buried so you'd never have to know. I was weak. I was dying and tired and so ready to not have to make hard decisions anymore. And Daniel was taking this burden off me, or so I thought. He would handle everything. He would take care of his sister. I could trust him. So I changed the will. I left everything to Daniel the way he suggested.
But as the months went by and I got sicker, I started to doubt. Daniel stopped visiting as much. When he did come, he talked about the house's value, about the antique business's inventory, about the coin collection's worth. He started treating my death like a business transaction he was waiting to close. And I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. I'd let him manipulate me. He'd used my fear about your parentage, a fear I'd already resolved, a question your mother had already answered, to use it to convince me to disinherit you, not to protect you, to protect himself, to make sure he got everything without having to share. The letter he'd shown me, the one from Helen to Michael Reeves, I asked to see it again. He claimed he'd destroyed it, said he thought it was for the best, but I think he never had it. Or if he did, he'd taken it deliberately, hidden it away, waited for the right moment to use it. I wanted to change the will, but then I was too sick, could barely hold a pen. Mr. Peterson advised me that a last-minute change when I was on heavy pain medication could be challenged in court. It would cause exactly the kind of legal mess Daniel had warned me about. So I did the only thing I could. I left this letter, the truth. Daniel, my son, I loved you. I gave you so much over the years. Money, support, my easy affection. But you used my love against me. You used my greatest shame, my inability to love your sister unconditionally, to manipulate me, to hurt her one last time.
The estate is legally yours. I can't change that now. But morally, ethically, it belongs to both of you. If you have any honor, any love for your sister, you will do what you promised me you'd do. You will split everything equally. Caroline will know now what you did. She'll know that you convinced a dying man to disinherit the daughter who was caring for him. You'll have to live with her knowing that. You'll have to live with what you've done. And Caroline, my darling girl, I'm so sorry. Sorry I doubted your place in my heart. Sorry I let that doubt create distance between us. Sorry I was weak at the end and let your brother manipulate me. You were always mine. The test your mother mentioned, I found the results after she died, tucked in her jewelry box. You are my biological daughter. Richard Brennan had been certain enough to have the test done when you were 3 years old, and she kept the proof all those years, maybe hoping I'd find it someday. You are a Brennan by blood and by love. You deserved to inherit equally, not as charity from your brother, but as your right. I've left the test results with Mr. Peterson. They're yours if you want them. Proof of what you should never have had to prove. I love you both. I failed you both. But I failed you most of all, Caroline. Forgive me if you can. Dad. The silence in that office was absolute. I sat frozen, unable to process what I'd just heard. The words echoed in my head, manipulated, used, convinced a dying man to disinherit the daughter who was caring for him? I turned to look at Daniel, my brother, the person I trusted most in the world after Dad. Tell me it's not true, I whispered. Daniel's face was in his hands. His shoulders shook. Tell me you didn't do that. Tell me Dad was confused, that the medication made him paranoid, that this is all some terrible misunderstanding. I found the letter, Daniel said, his voice muffled, in Mom's things. It was real, Caroline. She'd written to this man, told him she was pregnant, said she didn't know if it was his or Dad's. So you used it. You used Mom's secret to steal my inheritance. No! I didn't think of it that way. I thought... He looked up, and I saw tears streaming down his face. Dad had given me so much money over the years. hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you were there all the time, being perfect, taking care of him. I could see how much he loved you, how guilty he felt. I knew when he died everything would go to you, everything, as a thank you for caring for him. So you made sure that didn't happen. I have 2 kids, Caroline. Melissa doesn't work. We have a mortgage, college funds to build. That money Dad gave us. We'd spent it, all of it. And I thought if you inherited everything, you'd be fine with it. You'd say, Daniel has his own family, his own life. He doesn't need this. And I'd be left with nothing. Nothing? You'd already gotten $200,000, which should have been split between us from the start. He gave me that money because I asked, because I had expenses, because I wasn't afraid to need help. You never asked for anything, so you never got anything. How was that fair? I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. How is it fair? You manipulated our dying father. You made him doubt me, doubt my place in the family. You used his shame against him. I didn't make him doubt you. He already did. Don't you get it, Caroline? He always wondered. He always held back. I just gave him a reason to trust what he already felt. Get out, I said. Caroline, get out. Get away from me. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear your voice. I was going to split it with you, Daniel said desperately. I promised, Dad, and I meant it. Everything would have been 50-50. You would have gotten your share. As a gift from you, as charity, not as my right. What's the difference if you get the same amount? I stared at him. This man who shared my blood, my history, my grief. This stranger. The difference is, I said quietly, that Dad wanted me to have it, and you made him take it away. The difference is that you didn't trust me to be fair, but you expect me to trust you. The difference is that you're my brother, and you betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. If I may, there's one more thing. He pulled out a small envelope from the folder. The DNA test results your father mentioned. Caroline, they confirm what your mother told him. Richard Brennan is your biological father, 99.9% certainty.
He handed me the envelope. I didn't need to open it. I believed Dad, believed Mom. The test was just paper. It didn't change what I already knew in my heart. I was Richard Brennan's daughter. But Daniel had made Dad doubt it, had used that doubt like a weapon. Daniel was standing now too, reaching for me. Please, Caro, I made a mistake. I was scared and selfish, and I made a terrible mistake. But I'm still your brother. We're all the family we have left. I stepped back from his reach. No, you made sure of that when you decided family was worth less than money. I'll give you everything, he said desperately. The whole estate, all of it. I don't want it, not like this, not with you hating me. I don't want it either, not from you, not as some guilty payoff. Then what do you want? I looked at him, this person I'd loved my whole life, and felt nothing but emptiness where that love used to be. I want my father back, I said. I want the 2 years I spent taking care of him, believing we were finally close, believing I was finally enough. I want to unknow that while I was bathing him and feeding him and holding his hand, he was doubting whether I deserved to be his daughter. I want to unknow that my brother, who I trusted completely, was plotting how to take everything from me. Caroline, but I can't have any of that. So what I want, Daniel, is for you to leave. Take the house, take the money, take all of it. Enjoy it. Build your perfect life with your perfect family and live with what you did to get it. I walked out of that office and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Daniel calling my name, his voice breaking. Heard Mr. Peterson saying something about taking time, about making decisions when emotions weren't so raw. But I kept walking. Out of the building, into the parking lot, into my car.
I drove with no destination in mind, just drove until I found myself at the cemetery where Mom and Dad were buried. I sat on the grass between their headstones, Helen Marie Brennan and Richard James Brennan, together again, and finally let myself fall apart. I don't know how to forgive this, I said to Dad's grave. I don't know how to forgive him or you or any of it. The stone had no answers. The dead never do. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. Please don't shut me out. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging for a chance to make this right. I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet with my parents' ghosts, trying to figure out how to build a life from the rubble of my family. I spent that first month in a fog. My friend Jessica let me stay in her spare room, asked no questions when I came home with red eyes, just made tea and gave me space. I couldn't go back to Dad's house, Daniel's house now. Couldn't face the rooms where I cared for Dad, not knowing what I knew. Daniel tried everything to reach me. Calls, texts, emails, letters delivered to Jessica's address. He showed up twice, but I wouldn't see him. Jessica told him I needed time, and eventually he stopped coming, but the letters kept arriving. I didn't read most of them. They piled up on Jessica's kitchen counter, white envelopes with my name in Daniel's handwriting. But one night, 3 weeks after the lawyer's office, I was weak and lonely and missing my family so much it felt like physical pain. I opened one. Caroline, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need to try. I've been seeing a therapist. Melissa insisted after I told her everything. She said I needed to say this. What I did was wrong. Not just wrong, it was a betrayal of everything family should mean. I convinced myself I was being practical, protecting my children's future. But the truth is, I was being greedy and scared. Scared that you were the better child, the one who showed up, who sacrificed, who loved without keeping score. Scared that Dad would see that and I'd lose not just the inheritance, but proof that I mattered as much as you. I spent my whole life being the easy son while you were the difficult daughter. I got the praise for my good grades while you got lectures about being more practical. I got the pride for my career while you got concern about your unstable freelance life. And somewhere deep down, I thought I'd earned the inheritance through a lifetime of being what they wanted. But you earned it through something deeper, through love, and I couldn't stand it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself, but I need you to know I see what I did. I see it clearly now, and it makes me sick. The estate is in probate. When it clears, everything will be transferred to my name as the will specifies. But I've already talked to my lawyer. I'm splitting it 50-50, not as charity, as what should have been done from the start. I love you. I miss you. I'm sorry. Daniel. I set the letter down and cried. Not because I forgave him, I wasn't there yet, didn't know if I'd ever be, but because I mourned what we'd lost. The sibling bond I'd thought was unbreakable had shattered, and I didn't know if it could be repaired.
But more than Daniel's betrayal, I was grappling with Dad's, with the knowledge that for my entire life, he'd held part of himself back from me. That every hug had been measured, every I love you conditional. That when I'd needed him most, when I'd given up everything to care for him, he'd let himself be convinced to hurt me one last time. I started seeing a therapist too. Dr. Morgan was in her 60s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach that I appreciated. "You're angry," she said in our first session. "That's appropriate. You were betrayed by both your father and your brother. You're allowed to be furious." "But I feel guilty for being angry at Dad. He's dead. He can't defend himself or make amends. And he did leave that letter. He tried to make it right." "Did he?" Dr. Morgan asked gently. "Or did he leave the burden of making it right to you and Daniel?" That stopped me. "What do you mean?" "He could have fought harder to change the will, could have insisted on a new one despite the legal challenges,
could have told you the truth while he was alive so you could have confronted Daniel together. Instead, he left a letter that exposed Daniel's betrayal, but didn't actually fix anything. Who does that serve? I thought about it. It makes Dad look better, like he wanted to do right by me but was tricked. Exactly. He gets to be both the loving father and the victim of manipulation. But Caroline, the truth is more complicated than that, isn't it? He was already predisposed to doubt you, already treating Daniel as the favorite child. Daniel's manipulation worked because the ground was already fertile. It was a hard truth to hear. That Dad's betrayal wasn't just about being manipulated. It was about 40 years of holding back, of loving me less, of never quite seeing me as fully his. How do I forgive that? How do I forgive someone who's dead? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just accept it. Accept that your father was human and flawed, that he loved you imperfectly, that his limitations were about him, not about your worthiness of love. Over the following weeks, I started to piece my life back together. I contacted my old clients, started taking on projects again, small ones at first, just enough to feel productive. I looked at apartments, knowing I couldn't stay with Jessica forever. And slowly, carefully, I started to think about Daniel. I didn't excuse what he'd done, but I tried to understand it. He'd grown up with the same parents I had, watching Dad give easy affection, while I had to work for every scrap of approval. He'd built a life that required Dad's financial help, making him dependent in ways I'd never been. And when he'd seen that dependency threatened, he'd protected himself the only way he knew how. It didn't make it right, but it made him human. 2 months after the lawyer's office, Daniel sent a different kind of letter. No apology this time, just information. The estate had cleared probate, he'd received everything as the will specified, and he'd immediately transferred half of everything into an account in my name. "I know you said you didn't want it from me," he wrote, "but it's not from me. It's from Dad. It's what you should have had all along. Do with it whatever you want. Accept it or donate it or burn it, but know that it's yours by right, not by my charity." I stared at the bank statement he'd included. More money than I'd ever had, than I'd ever imagined having. My half of the house sale, the business, the savings, the investments. Dad's money, earned over a lifetime of teaching and saving and careful planning. But it still felt tainted, still felt like blood money, bought with betrayal and manipulation. I called Daniel for the first time in 2 months. He answered on the first ring. "Caroline," just my name, filled with so much hope and fear. "I got the money," I said. "Okay." Cautious, waiting. "I don't know what to do with it." He was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" "I want to not need it. I want to have built a life without it, without any of this." "But you haven't," Daniel said gently. "So what now?" "I'm thinking about Dad's school, the high school where he taught for 35 years. "What about it?" "They don't have much of an arts program. Budget cuts over the years. I thought maybe I could endow something? A scholarship for students who want to study art or design, or fund an art teacher position. Something that would help kids like me, the creative ones who don't fit the traditional mold." "Dad would love that," Daniel said, and I could hear he was crying. "Yeah, he would." I paused. "I'm not doing it for him, though. I'm doing it for me. Because I need this money to mean something other than what it represents." That makes sense. And Daniel, your half, what are you doing with it? He laughed, but it was bitter. Honestly, most of it's going to pay off the debts I didn't tell Melissa about. Turns out, when Dad was giving me all that money, I was also overspending, trying to keep up appearances. The big house, the new cars, Emma's private school, we're leveraged up to our eyeballs. So Dad was enabling you. Yeah, and I was letting him because it was easier than admitting I couldn't afford the life I was living. We were both quiet for a moment, two children realizing our father had failed us both in different ways, given Daniel too much and me too little, leaving us both unbalanced. Daniel, that letter Mom wrote, the one you found, did it really exist? Silence. Then, yes, I swear to you, Caroline, it was real. I didn't make it up. Where is it now? I destroyed it, like I told Dad. I thought if it didn't exist anymore, the doubt would go away too. But it didn't. No. It made everything worse. I thought about Mom, about the secret she carried, the affair, the pregnancy, the uncertainty. She'd gotten a DNA test and never told Dad the results, just kept that proof tucked away like an apology he'd never asked for. She must have been so scared. Mom, pregnant, and not knowing. Yeah, Daniel agreed. And then spending the rest of her life watching Dad hold back from you because of his own doubts. She must have wanted to tell him about the test results so many times. Why didn't she? Maybe for the same reason Dad didn't change the will back. Sometimes it's easier to live with the guilt than to face the consequences of making it right. We talked for another hour that day, not about forgiveness or reconciliation, but about Mom and Dad, about the family we thought we had versus the one that actually existed, about the ways parents fail their children even while loving them.
I didn't forgive Daniel that day, but I started to understand that forgiveness wasn't going to be a single moment, a light switch I could flip. It would be a process, a choice I'd have to make over and over again. 3 months after the lawyer's office, I went back to Dad's grave, or what used to be Dad's grave. Daniel had sold the house, and I realized with a start that the cemetery was the only physical place my father existed now. I brought flowers, daisies, the simple ones Dad used to grow in his garden. I'm going to be okay, I told his headstone. I don't know if you worried about that at the end, if you wondered whether I'd survive this, but I will. I am. I sat down on the grass, the spring sun warm on my face. I'm angry at you still. I don't know if that'll ever completely go away. You should have loved me better, should have fought harder against your own doubts, should have protected me from Daniel instead of protecting him from the consequences of what he did. A breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree nearby. But I also know you tried. In your own flawed human way, you tried. And that last letter, it wasn't enough, but it was something. It was you finally telling the truth. I placed the daisies against the headstone. I'm setting up the scholarship in your name, but also in mine, the Richard and Caroline Brennan Art Scholarship, because I was your daughter, no matter what doubts you had. And I want kids who feel like they don't fit to know they have a place. They have value. I want to give them what you couldn't always give me, unconditional support. I stood up, brushing grass from my jeans. I miss you, Dad. Even knowing everything, I miss you. I guess that's what love is. Missing someone even when they've hurt you, holding space for both the good they did and the harm. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Emma's spring concert is next week. No pressure, but I know she'd love to see you there." I looked at the message for a long time. Emma, my niece, innocent in all of this, just a kid who loved her family. I typed back, "I'll think about it." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a maybe, a door left slightly open. That night, I opened my laptop and started designing the scholarship program. Not just funding, but mentorship. Art supplies for students who couldn't afford them. Gallery space for student shows. Connections to art schools and design programs. I poured my pain into something productive, something that would outlast the hurt. And slowly, so slowly I barely noticed it happening, I started to feel lighter. The anger was still there, but it didn't consume me anymore. The betrayal still stung, but it wasn't the only thing I could feel. I was still Caroline Brennan, still the daughter who'd loved imperfectly and been loved imperfectly in return. Still the sister who'd been betrayed but hadn't let it destroy her. I was still here, still whole, even if the shape of me had changed. And maybe that was enough.
It's been a year and a half since I sat in that lawyer's office and learned what betrayal tastes like. A year and a half since my world reorganized itself around a truth I never wanted to know. The Richard and Caroline Brennan Art Scholarship awarded its first grants last month. 5 students, all juniors at Dad's old high school, all kids who reminded me of myself, a little lost, a little different, full of creativity that didn't fit into standardized tests and college prep courses. I met each of them, saw their portfolios, heard their dreams. One girl, Maya, wants to be an animator. She showed me drawings of characters she'd created, whole worlds built in the margins of her notebook during math class. "My parents think art is a hobby," she told me quietly. "They want me to be a doctor or a lawyer, something practical." I wanted to tell her that practical is overrated, that following your heart matters more than following a safe path. But I also thought about Dad, the practical man who'd spent 35 years teaching history because it was stable, who'd maybe had his own dreams he'd set aside. "Art can be practical," I said instead, "and parents can surprise you. They might not understand now, but love has a way of catching up to truth eventually." I'm not sure I believed it entirely, but I wanted to, for her sake, and maybe for mine. Daniel came to the scholarship ceremony. He stood in the back of the auditorium, didn't approach me, just sent a text afterward. "Dad would be so proud. I'm proud of you too." We're not fixed, Daniel and I. I don't know if we ever will be completely, but we're talking now, carefully, occasionally, with boundaries that didn't used to exist between us. He's in therapy still, working on understanding why he did what he did. I'm in therapy still, working on understanding how to hold space for both loving someone and being hurt by them. Last month, I went to Emma's spring concert, sat in the audience with Melissa while Daniel sat with Thomas further back, their own marriage going through its struggles after all the revelations. Emma played violin, her face serious with concentration, and she was beautiful. Afterwards, she ran up to me. "Aunt Caroline, you came." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, and realized I meant it. She hugged me tight, and I thought about family, not the perfect version we pretend exists, but the messy, complicated, sometimes broken version that's real. Emma was innocent in all of this, just like I'd been innocent in Mom's affair, just like Daniel had been innocent in Dad's doubts. We're all just trying to navigate the choices the generation before us made. I bought a small house with my share of the inheritance. Nothing fancy, but it has a garden in the back where I'm slowly learning to grow things. Tomatoes and cucumbers and those bell peppers Dad could never quite get right. I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm trying. Some things take time and patience and the willingness to fail before you succeed. I think about Dad often, not just the man who doubted me, but the whole person he was. The teacher who stayed late to help struggling students. The husband who chose to work on his marriage instead of walking away. The father who loved both his children, even if he loved us imperfectly. The dying man who tried,
in his flawed way, to make things right at the end. I think about Mom too, carrying her secret for nearly 40 years, getting that DNA test and never using it to defend me. I wish I could ask her why. Was it shame? Fear? Or did she think, like Dad, that some truths are better left buried? But the dead don't answer questions. They just leave us here with our inheritance of mysteries and mistakes, asking us to make sense of it all. Here's what I've learned. Family is both the people who love us and the people who hurt us, and sometimes they're the same people. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It's about choosing not to let their actions define your entire life. An inheritance isn't just about money or houses or what gets written in a will. It's about the patterns we repeat, the wounds we carry, the ways we choose to be different than the generation before us. I'm building a life that's mine now. Not the life Dad envisioned, not the life I thought I'd have, but something new. Something that acknowledges the pain but doesn't live in it. Something that makes room for anger and love to exist side by side, because that's what real life looks like. The garden is growing. The scholarship will help more students next year. Daniel and I text every few weeks, slow steps towards something that might eventually be called reconciliation. I'm dating someone kind that doesn't ask me to be more than I am. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit in my garden with a cup of chamomile tea and feel something close to peace. Not because everything is fixed or forgiven or forgotten, but because I'm still here, still growing, still finding ways to turn the broken pieces of my inheritance into something that blooms. Maybe that's what we all do in the end. We take what we're given, the good and the bad, the love and the betrayal, and we build what we can with it. We choose which patterns to continue and which to break. We decide whether our pain will define us or refine us. I choose refining. I choose growth. I choose to believe that even broken families can have beautiful moments, that even imperfect love is still love. And that the truest inheritance we leave isn't money or houses or things. It's how we taught the people around us to heal. Dad taught me that, in the end. Not by being perfect, but by being honest about his imperfection. Not by leaving me everything, but by leaving me the truth. And maybe that's the greatest gift he could have given me after all.